everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday. Apologize, this video had to be delayed. Unfortunately, I was pretty tired yesterday and did not have time to upload a video, but I should be all caught up by the end of today, Wednesday. But expect a delay for Thursday up to maybe Sunday's video, depending. There may be some points in which I cannot upload this week. But without further ado, I wanted to address for this particular music talk the Super Bowl halftime show that took place last Sunday. I personally thought that it was alright. I mean, there were, I think, significant problems with it. But there were some things that I did enjoy. So I'll kind of go into sort of my thoughts and sort of my positives and negatives. And you can probably weigh those things for yourself and sort of see where you kind of fall as to these kinds of shows and performances. Usually the halftime show is supposed to be this kind of big thing and really be a huge part of the Super Bowl. And I think largely that is due to the fact that it is trying to showcase entertainment and put it sort of on the platform of music as sort of a breaker for the actual event of football that really is the premise behind the Super Bowl. And there have been a lot of artists actually that have done the Super Bowl over the years, from Michael Jackson to Paul McCartney. There have been a lot of performances that have centered around a lot of famous people over the years. It seems like at least a lot of the Super Bowls that have been happening, at least relatively recently, are a lot more so about the spectacle and trying to be very out there and maybe on a certain level wacky or goofy. And also kind of give off this kind of edgy vibe, you know, sort of to give a sense of the cool factor, hip factor that I think appeals largely more to the younger demographic. But what I did enjoy about the halftime show, at least this particular one, was that Coldplay, I think, did a significantly good job in getting people energized, getting people engaged. They had really good instrumentals. And obviously, those instrumentals could probably be heard differently, obviously, depending on if you've heard them live or if you heard them through the television set. Obviously, I wasn't there at the Super Bowl. I heard it through the television set, and it was really clear. It was easy to see these sorts of differences between the songs, since they played sort of like a compilation of their songs. And they also played songs that weren't actually that recent and were more so their more famous works as well. So I think that really translated well. And I really liked the backgrounds that they had. They had these really nice and beautifully colored backgrounds. As to whether or not they were sort of a symbolism for gay pride, I don't think that really should matter. I mean, I think personally people can interpret that as however they want to. And I think it's beautiful to see rainbow colors. We rarely see these kinds of rainbow colors really be incorporated into a lot of these forms of art, at least. I think the rainbow has become sort of a symbol for, I think, it's more so the gay pride movement, but it's also a beautiful representation of nature, considering that the rainbow is such a fascinating aspect of light, really, and translates into all these different shades. And it was really well crafted here because there were these umbrella-like flowers that they had. they had all these color streams, and then in the background they had these beautiful colors all coming together, and and they had this nice little saying of believe in love, and it was very peaceful, and you could almost associate it as being kind of hippie oriented, because again a lot of that kind of uh, culture, at least, and culminates a lot of rainbow aspects as well. But here I felt it was fairly clean, and it felt fairly genuine, and just fun. And you felt like that there was a sense of people kind of letting go and sort of enjoying themselves. And it was nice that they incorporated other people, like they had these people, I think, from various I don't know if they were from one specific group or if they were from multiple different groups, but they had various people playing different instruments too, that really weren't necessarily part of their band, but did like violin and other instruments. So that was also, I think, very nice to include, and was, I think, a good part of the show. Unfortunately, there are still a significant amount of problems that I had with this particular show. First off being, I thought that Beyonce's and Bruno Mars's guest performances were pretty bad. I didn't think they stood out in any way, shape, or form. And I thought that their outfits were really bad. Like, they were just so horribly put together that it was very distracting. And it didn't allow you to get really invested into the music. Whereas with Coldplay's outfits and their whole sort of spectacle that they had, actually had a certain amount of substance, I felt, to it. I didn't feel like there was anything fake about it. But here with Beyonce in particular, Bruno Mars too, I felt that their outfits, as well as the way in which they projected themselves, it just seems so fake. And even with Beyonce, at times it felt like she was being like overly aggressive for really no reason. Also, apparently I heard there was some controversy behind her outfit. Sort of that it was supposed to be symbolizing, I guess, some kind of political message. I don't know if there's any validity, or I think that's how you would term it, to that point, but it was very distracting. I felt like that it was really hard for me to get invested into what they were ultimately really saying, or what the energy they were kind of giving off. I know Bruno Mars was trying to kind of be cool, but the outfits just didn't work for me, and even though they did some dancing, it didn't really feel all that well put together, and it just felt very lackluster on their end. And I thought, had they just had Coldplay up there, and not have these guest performances come in and try to make, some kind of statement, I think it would have suited itself a whole lot better. Also, and I think this is sort of universal across all of the artists, I could not hear the vocals. The vocals were so hard for me to understand, because it was so drowned out by not only the instrumentals, but also people in the background, and it was just so hard to understand. I mean, I could sing along to the Coldplay songs because I knew them. I only really knew, I only think Bruno Mars really performed one song, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't know what the heck Beyonce's song was like. That I didn't understand how that was in any way, shape, or form, memorable in any way as a song. So I think my issues largely stem from, again, they didn't really prepare that microphone all too well for them. And it really drowned out their voices, and you could not understand anything really that they were ultimately saying, which is very unfortunate and really brings down this halftime show, because, you need to hear the vocals. I mean, you need to have a certain amount of of at least clarity in to which they're being projected onto the audience. And I think what they could have done and would have probably solved that problem would have been if they lowered the volume of the instrumentals. I mean, the instrumentals were pretty loud. I mean, it's almost like, you could have heard their soundtrack and you would have heard, it fairly clearly. But if it's live, you can play those things down. I mean, you know, if you want to, give off the impression that you have vocals, I mean, it's important to have them be at sort of the forefront. Um, and it just didn't jive all too well, unfortunately. And I think that's really what brought down this halftime show. And overall, it really wasn't that special. I didn't think it was as spectacular as some other performances that I've seen of maybe the Super Bowl, although it's very difficult for me to really remember the halftime shows, unfortunately. Which is, I think, kind of sad because, I mean, I think it would be nice, because I think the music world and the sports world can collide fairly well, and I think we've seen this with, you know, sporting events like the Olympics where they'll do this whole show opening up and, having some kind of artistic expression of the country that they're in, and using music and whatnot to sort of get that get a certain impression across to people. I think that would have, those kinds of things are nice to see, and I think can be incorporated really well. And I think, it'd be nice to see it more utilized with sports because I think in the same way music is entertainment, so is sports. So, and again, obviously they always have the national anthem, which was done by Lady Gaga. And she did all right. I thought she did good. I didn't think it was spectacular by any stretch of the imagination, but I still thought that she did a decent job. And again, I think she did get a little bit drowned out by, the crowd and people just going crazy and her having to I guess she sometimes didn't go close enough to the microphone. I don't know, but there were points where it was difficult for me to see if she was even singing anymore, because she was kind of stretching out the notes at points. So, you know, but overall, I mean, it wasn't I didn't think it was horrible. Like, I didn't think it was a bad halftime show, but I think what ended up happening is that, you got the Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga outfits that were, again, all black, all cheesy, all just really fake looking and just horrible, and then just horribly orchestrated songs. And then you have this Coldplay band who actually does decent music. And just to see these two things kind of combine together, it just creates, a half good, half bad impression. Hence the halftime show. And that's kind of my thoughts, at least when it comes to this particular halftime show. But I'm sure there's other people who have different thoughts on this than I do. But those were really my ultimate impressions. I mean, I thought there were some good things and good ideas, and I think there was a lot of effort genuinely put into certain aspects of it. But I think, unfortunately, some of them got really drowned out. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that there were these guest performers, Bruno Mars and Beyonce, who really didn't jive all too well with Coldplay's whole tone, especially considering the fact that they were kind of more aggressive in the way in which they sounded and, the way in which they presented themselves. And it's kind of taking a really nice painting and then just splattering like, ink spots over it, and I thought that's really the best way I can really describe this halftime show. Good parts to it, unfortunately drowned out by some bad parts. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say, though. Thank you so much for watching, though. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all next video. Take care. Bye-bye.